I don't know what you sound like without the fucking sock condom on.
And that's the show, folks.
Do-do-do-do-do.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
God damn, Console Crusade podcast. Get this fucking dirty goddamn sock off the table. Okay, I know it's not
DJ?
like technically like worn since it was last washed.
I've been to your house and I've seen you take your socks off in your living room and just leave them on the ground.
I didn't put them in your face.
But they're in my vicinity.
Oh my god. Would it be better if they were on my feet somehow?
Find me a dirty piece of clothing in my room that's not in the laundry basket.
Just saying. Sometimes you want to get up and walk to the laundry basket. Not everyone's living room can also be in their bedroom, okay, Nick?
That's the life you chose to live by not living in basically a studio apartment.
It's real cozy in here.
Yeah, I try.
You have more space than I have in any singular room in my entire house.
Well, yeah, it's a big fucking room.
God.
But it's also 3 rooms in one.
It's just true. Thank God you don't have a toilet in here.
Actually, it's like 4 rooms in one if you think about it.
Wow.
So I got the office,
Yeah.
got the entertainment center,
Yeah.
living room. And we got like dining room kind of where we're sitting right now in the bedroom.
You got a whole sink over here.
I have a whole fucking sink. Everything in the kitchen sink.
Everything but. Everything and.
Everything and.
Where did my drink go? I lost my drink.
It's right behind you.
I got a gurgly stomach. I probably don't want to drink
Right
now.
over there. It's all right.
So we have not recorded in a while. I went out and bought a new mic today so we could record in person. And because I did not have the prescience to purchase a pop filter, I am using one of Nick's clean, quote unquote, socks. It's not worn, but it's definitely been worn a lot. So
It's been worn a few times. I've had that sock for a good amount of a year.
I can tell. I can tell. So I recently started wearing boots again because the weather and such and whatever.
The Pacific Northwest
Right.
gets a little damp.
So you wear boot socks,
Yeah.
wool or
The
wool
smart wool.
adjacent.
Yeah.
My feet have been stinking, which I don't have a problem with foot sweat. I don't have a problem with foot smell. Haven't had a problem with that since I was a teenager. It's been weird, man. Sarah's like, your feet stink. I'm like, my fucking feet don't stink. My feet haven't fucking stunk in 12 years.
Do your boots stink? Yeah, boots stink.
My boots don't stink. Like when I smell them, like it's normal. But then like I take the socks off, I'm like, oh. I texted Sarah the other day. I was like, yeah, my feet stink.
You get some boot stink. You might want to put some like baby powder or some baking soda in there. It gets rid of the moisture, and the smell comes from the moisture. All right.
Yeah, I'm a moist man.
Let me tell you a thing or two about work boots and the odors that start emanating eventually.
Dude, I'm sure they get fucking gnarly.
No, they don't get that bad actually, because I take care of them. It can get there if you let it.
I've never had like athlete's foot or like anything gnarly with my feet.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Just a little hair on the toes, and that's it.
Yeah, fucking hobbit feet over
a
there.
little callus from all the time I spend barefoot during the summer.
Mhm.
Anyway, it's the Console Crusade podcast. Now that we're 4 minutes in, we're talking about some stuff today. We don't even have a topic list because we're fucking lazy, but we're just here hanging
I don't even
out.
remember what we talked about last time.
Oh, shit. Neither do I.
This is just we talked about Blizzard, then we talked about some Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're playing lots of X-Mage,
Yeah.
which we haven't done at all lately.
Yeah. I know.
We were going to one night, but then it didn't happen.
Yeah, I told you to put together a deck, and then I didn't get back from you. So
Probably
whatever.
fell asleep like 10 o'clock. And
Life,
like, well, fuck this guy.
life gets in the way.
Yeah. Life,
Speaking of Jeff Goldblum,
uh-oh.
have you watched anything on Disney Plus? Because that just came out.
I have, but I have not watched the Jeff Goldblum show. It's on my watch list.
I don't know if I'm going to watch it. Just because I don't really give a shit about Jeff Goldblum and like
He's a
whatever.
weirdo.
Yeah.
He's
I like nature stuff. I might watch
eccentric.
some of the other National Geographic stuff, but I'm not exactly enamored with Jeff Goldblum and his cult of personality or whatever.
I started watching the Empire of Dreams Star Wars documentary.
Wow, that's
Very good.
Pretty cool.
The guy who narrates it has a splendid voice.
You need that for a narrator.
Yeah.
Because that's like their one job. That and like, kind of telling you things about what's going on the screen. But they got to sound good doing it.
I hate to see his face.
Like, was it Attenborough?
Attenborough.
Does the Planet Earth stuff.
Mm.
Got a very good voice for that.
Do you remember Civilization 4?
I never played Civ.
And or 5? Oh, Leonard Nimoy.
That's pretty cool.
It was 3 or 4,
Mm.
or 4 or 5 rather.
Rest in peace.
4, yeah. Yeah, he had a great voice. It was very intimidating. The Roman Empire. I can't. It's not quite so deep. It's not like a James Earl Jones-esque. It's more like, it's deep. He's got a deep ass voice.
He has a commanding voice.
But that's
because he did a lot of plays and stuff. I think maybe Broadway, but maybe just like British plays. Was he British? Fuck, I don't even remember. Maybe I'm just getting him mixed up with fucking Picard, He's got a good voice too.
Yes, he does. He's got an interesting timbre, okay? It's like, he's got this kind of Kermit-y quality, but not quite so like, I'm a Muppet. It's like much deeper, but it's got that sort of otherworldly.
Much like Kermit the
Alien. So anyway, yeah, we talked about that shit. I don't know. And this week, we were going to record last week, and we were going to talk about things like the Fallen Order embargo fiasco and the internet's outcry. We're going to talk about the Sword and Shield debacle, which was continuing to grow post-data mine, post-leak, and the internet was very unhappy, which I think they have the right to be. And I'm still unhappy. But
I think a lot of those controversies, obviously they blow over super quick.
Right.
Because very short lifespan on these things, very short memory. And I don't know, the Fallen Order review embargo, like lifting the moment the game came out, not that big of a deal. That shit happens all the time. What's the worst that could happen is that the game isn't very good. Like, fucking who cares? If you're an idiot who pre-orders games still, then like that's on you. Just literally wait 1 minute and be like, okay, this is a 80 Metacritic, it's fine.
Sure. It just doesn't, I agree with you. It is on the consumer to be educated and informed, and you shouldn't pre-order games. Like, that's bad. Unless there's like a physical special edition you want, and it's going to sell out, and it's like, all right, I'm going to order the special edition Fire Emblem. And it's like, if the game sucks, that's playing the lottery.
When was the last time a special edition sold out?
Fire Emblem.
That shit was still selling at Best Buy for like weeks after that game came out.
I did actually just see it at Best Buy, like on a whim, not too long ago, and I was like, oh, I'm going to get this. And I was like, it comes with a calendar. I don't give a fuck. And I didn't get it.
How relevant is that calendar now?
I would have, 2 years ago, I would have bought that thing because I was a sick man.
Yeah, you're addicted to Awakening, so you're super hyped back then.
Dude, Three Houses was fucking good, though, dude.
Pretty good game.
Oh, I love that game.
Still wish I would have played it on a harder difficulty, but can't change the past.
You could. You could just...
I'm not going to play it again. Fuck that. This shit took me like 80 hours.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spend...
Ooh, playing some footsie, Nick. You can see your face. You're like, no, motherfucker, I wasn't trying to touch you. So yeah, we'll talk about our thoughts on Star Wars and all that shit. The Pokemon thing, I do want to talk about because it's reviewed well, and I haven't played it, and I'm not going to buy it yet. I don't want to say never, but everything we've talked about, from the graphics to the National Dex thing to just whatever, it just does not look like a modern next-gen Pokemon game. In the fucking gimmicks with the Dynamax and Giganta, fucking who cares? And the new starters got leaked, and they are fucking horrible. Freaking Gex, the James Bond frog, but blue. But he just is horrible. But the reviews were decent. But I guess if you're a diehard Pokemon fan, literally anything with branded Pokemon, like, you're gonna play and you're gonna love. Because to be a diehard Pokemon fan, okay, I don't want to offend anybody here, but to be a diehard Pokemon fan, like, you gotta kind of have shitty taste or a very limited, experience with other RPGs and the like, right?
Or you're just not looking for like the best game ever. You're just looking to play more Pokemon, I guess.
After 20 years of that, though, like, you can only have so much more Pokemon before it's like something's got to give. And that's why Let's Go is so good, because it was like, oh, something gave. I mean, they took some, they gave some, they did something new and fresh. It was really polished.
I mean, they took a lot, and that was why you were so worried about it. And it wasn't the things that they took away that made the game like worse to play. It only made things better in some regards. It smoothed down a lot of the rough edges that sort of come with replaying that kind of old version of Pokemon.
Sure. It gave us a different enough experience and added enough that it was like, made the game worthy of having a remake, but polished it enough that it was just a streamlined, fun experience. I don't want to speak too much about the actual game itself because we haven't played it, obviously, but just based on what we've seen, what the Pokemon Company has said about developing the game.
Game Freak, specifically.
Right. It's almost frustrating that, like, people are giving it good reviews because they're giving it good reviews in spite of like, it's kind of like the Death Stranding effect, and we can talk about Death Stranding. I'm sure you've probably watched Andrew play that a little bit. It's like all the reviews were like, is it good? Did I like it? Well, I don't know. Was it a game? Yeah. Did I play it? Sure. But, and this was bad, and I don't know about this, but 8.5 out of 10. Okay. Like, that's what I feel like all these Pokemon reviews are. It's like, well, this is bad, and this is gone, and this was kind of rough, and it looks like shit, and it's buggy as hell, and it's this and it's that. But here's a 9 because it's Pokemon.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't think a review is like the sum of its parts. It's beyond that, right? So if you think a game is really, really good, but you recognize its flaws, I don't think that necessarily means that you have to give it a lower score. Like if you picked up Skyrim right now, you'd be like, oh, this looks like shit, and it's really buggy, and all this, but I love the game. 9 out of 10. Like, that'd be a fine review.
Sure. Or Breath of the Wild.
Or Breath of the Wild. Or
Best
Death
game
Stranding.
ever? No. Come on. But people loved it, and it hit at the right time, and it was a special time and place thing, and
Yeah,
you
and
have to
a
acknowledge
review
that.
is literally subjective.
The thing that's frustrating as a bitter old Pokemon fan at the ripe old age of 27 is, they said this was going to be like the culmination of Pokemon game. This was going to be for the diehard fans.
Well, that's marketing. They say that for every single fucking game. They said that for Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. Did you fucking play that? No one did.
Oh, I forgot about the Ultras. Yeah, just a shitty rehash with like a different cutscene at the beginning. Like horrible.
So that's just what they say for every game. So for to some extent, I believe that people are a little bit too precious about what Game Freak said or like what the producer said, because they have to say it because they have to sell the game. They're not going to be like, oh, this is our first tryout, we're just trying. They did that with Pokemon Let's Go a little bit. Like, they're like, we're trying a lot of new things, and they're pretty open with that because they were changing a lot of stuff, but they didn't say they're changing much with this. They're like, we're excited to tell you about our new gimmick, which is big Pokemon. But something I wanted to relay to you was...
Do you remember Pokefloats?
Dude, bring back Pokefloats. Justice for Pokefloats.
Okay.
I just read a comment on Reddit. I don't know what thread it was, just some thread on Reddit, but someone just said, imagine getting this mad about a blog review of a game for children.
Listen, I understand that sentiment.
It's like being mad that they changed Barney.
It's different because
Is it?
Positive reviews influence sales. Sales obviously drive what Pokemon Company does and what Game Freak does. So if Game Freak says, oh, this was a mass hit, this was a total success despite a couple of angry people on the internet, guess what they're going to do? They're going to make the same fucking bullshit game for the next 10 years until the Switch moves on to whatever's next. And we're not going to... If this game had completely tanked and the internet outrage had gone wild and everyone said this is not acceptable, after all these years, like, hire a real development team, Game Freak. You have these fucking guys from 1984 trying to make games in 2019. So if this game had reviewed poorly and if it sells poorly, they're forced to change something. Like, I have to. But because this is going to go on to sell fucking 15 million copies this year, they're just going to keep doing it.
It would do that regardless of the reviews. I mean, Anthem reviewed incredibly poorly this year, and it's still one of the best-selling games of the year.
That is very interesting.
Battlefront 2 reviewed very poorly, but it was still like one of the best-selling games of the month. I don't know how it hashed out for the entire year, but I mean, it's Star Wars, so like it's not going to sell badly.
Right.
Last Jedi probably reviewed pretty poorly. I mean, it had lower attendance than Force Awakens, but the reviews don't necessarily always influence the masses if it's like a known property. Like, Pokemon is going to sell well regardless because it's fucking Pokemon. It's the best. It's the biggest franchise in the world.
But it's the difference between like the Force Awakens becoming the best, the highest grossing movie of all time, and people going back again and again and again because it was good enough. And maybe we have differing opinions there, but whereas Last Jedi was like, I know when that came out, the whole controversy was, oh, it's review bombing, it's bots, it's fucking Russians, whatever the fuck. And it's like, no, the movie's actually fucking bad. Like, maybe it's well made, maybe it's pretty and it's this or it's that, but the movie overall is fucking bad. And people didn't go see it again. I saw it once in theaters. I saw Force Awakens, a movie that I thought was aggressively mediocre, that I had a lot of issues with, 7 times in theaters.
Well, you're part of the problem.
I saw The Last Jedi 1 time because it fucking sucked. Okay? So, like, the reviews came out. People were mad about it. People saw it. They were disappointed. They didn't keep going back. And they didn't fucking break $1 trillion fucking dollars. So, if Pokemon reviews, but yeah, you're going to have all the people who say, oh, new Pokemon, they're going to buy it. But if it's not great or for reviews, but whatever it is, the whole confluence of elements here. You're not selling the 2 copies to every diehard fan. You're not selling the fucking rehash that comes out next year because people are mad. And if that happens and the outrage gets, look what just happened with fucking. This is different, but fucking the Sonic movie. People were like, no, fuck this dumb shit. We are not going to see that fucking movie.
And they're not going to go see it now that it's changed.
I'm going to go see it.
You would have gone to see it regardless because it looked like a trash fire, and that would have been just as interesting.
As far as memes go, yeah, but like we said, we're going to go see Venom. We didn't see fucking Venom. I still haven't seen fucking Venom.
I still want to see
Venom. Like, yeah, we would have been like, oh, let's go see Sonic as a bit, but like,
hey, we saw Detective Pikachu.
But that was like a fine
kids movie for toddlers.
Yeah, like I'll see a Sonic movie if it's if it's Detective Pikachu.
It's not going to be as good as Detective Pikachu.
It won't be as good. But like Jim Carrey and fucking Sonic and that one guy who used to be a thing.
James Marsden has never been in a good movie.
Cheaper by the dozen.
No.
Hello.
Actually, no. His best movie is Ella Enchanted.
Ella Enchanted. I know this. Help me place this movie
with Amy Adams. She comes out of the cartoon, and it's got Wormtail from Harry Potter as the weird little henchman of like the Maleficent kind of character who comes into the real world, and they're singing, and Patrick Dempsey is there.
What?
Yeah, it's a musical. It's a great movie. I like it.
I'm not okay. I
don't know how great it is, but I liked it when I watched it. Yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
Pokemon. I think another thing that makes it kind of weird is that everything is so divisive on the internet now that if you like the game or want to like the game or want to defend the game, it's really easy because there's a million straw men that make themselves just talking about how they're like harassing reviewers and like being really toxic online. And then the people on the other side are like, oh, they have a motive. These Poketubers, they have a vested interest in Pokemon succeeding because that's their bread and butter. Like it's bad times.
Yeah.
Also, my dog is whining. I'm going to go let her inside.
Yeah, I got to say, we're going to deal with the doggo here tonight. That's okay. She'll go through stretches where she's, no problem, but then she starts barking or whining, and she's going to be real bummed because no one's here to pet her. She'll try.
She's a beagle.
She'll try.
A noisy breed.
Yeah.
It's okay.
By the way, we are in person, obviously.
Obviously
doing this in person.
We talked about my dirty sock.
Got it. Hopefully I don't run out of storage space in my laptop over the course of this podcast.
What are you recording in 4K?
Very real possibility.
4K audio.
I'm just like down to the wire as far as space goes. So we'll see what happens here. If it gets cut off prematurely, like
it's a sign.
It is what it is. And if we'll post our 20 minutes or 40 minutes or however far we get. If it gets cut off, that's, now you know. No, I agree with you. And some people listening will probably just say, maybe you're just being a shitty asshole who's like, why are they giving it good reviews? Well, maybe because it's a good game. And I'm like, okay, fair. Maybe it is. Maybe it is just not for me. But I think there's enough there for, especially for longtime fans of the series. Like, I loved Let's Go. I put a fuck ton of time into Let's Go. I really liked, despite their flaws, Sun and Moon. We played the crap out of that. So it's not like I've been crying about this for 15 years looking to recapture the glory days. It's like I have liked and enjoyed modern Pokemon games. I played the crap out of X and Y.
Black and White 2 is before that. Did you play Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire?
I did a little bit. I never beat either of those.
And then before Black and White 2 was Heart Gold Soul Silver. So we're going to DS, 3DS, then you like Let's Go, and I like Let's Go.
Yeah. So, I've hesitated to say, well, it's not for me anymore. Like when we talk about Star Wars and people say, Force Awakens was so mediocre and they played it too safe and Last Jedi was bad. And for people to like discredit my thoughts or opinions on that, like... Oh,
because you're a misogynist. That's why you didn't like Last Jedi. Right. It's because there's actually female characters talking to each other.
Yeah, that's why I didn't like it.
Clearly, my that's the only reason you wouldn't like it, right?
Yeah. Seriously though, it's like people's like reaction to it, and I'm like, no, there were real reasons why this movie is really bad.
But I mean, on the other hand, you can just be like, oh, you just act like you like it because you're trying to be contrarian, you're trying to prove a point,
right?
But like, some people can just enjoy it.
Sure,
there's a gradient of reasons, but because it's so, it's just either you're with me or you're against me.
Well, the frustrating thing is like. And the thing that a lot of the times you see people getting amped up in these like quote unquote toxic interactions is when someone is like, dude, The Last Jedi fucking sucked. And you get the Brian Altanos of the world who give us their fucking bullshit. He's a total contrarian. He disagrees with all the fucking popular opinions. But he does the whole, I'm going to be Mr. Positive and I'm going to, make you feel bad for like having a negative opinion. That is more toxic in my eyes than someone who's like, fuck this movie. And people get riled up, especially on the internet. So a lot of times when someone's like, this is how I feel about it, and it's how a lot of other people feel, and then you get the posy brigade coming in, making everyone feel bad for saying like, hey, we as consumers and as like fans who are invested in this thing, like we deserve, quote unquote, we deserve better. Like I think there's some truth to that.
Well, I mean, if you have like that much following and you see so many negative reactions, I can see it making sense to try and harbor a positive environment by like outputting that, because you reap what you sow. Like if you're gonna act like an asshole on the internet, you're gonna get a bunch of asshole followers too.
Well, meanwhile, something like the Joker, which it was unanimously praised, and again, it's fine. You don't have to agree with if you don't like something, you don't like something, or if you like something, that's whatever.
Yeah, but he didn't go out there and say this movie sucks. Retweet if you agree, and let's all fucking talk shit about the movie we didn't like.
He used his platform to do what he does, which is to garner reactions, which is by being
which is his job.
Yeah, sure, whatever. But just again, the idea that sort of reaction to the people who have these opinions, they become the vocal minority because in a lot of ways they can feel, people can feel like invalidated because they, there are a lot of toxic people out there. So don't get me wrong. But I'm like, hey, this movie sucks. And literally everybody I know is like, you're being this, you're being that. And I'm like, listen, like Nick, I know you like The Force Awakens, but you also like don't really like Star Wars. And you're like, oh, the movie was fine. Like, you're right. It was fine. But because we have very different levels of expectations and investment in the franchise and in these characters, like my negative reaction is a lot stronger than you're like, oh, yeah, it was fine. Like, we didn't like love the movie. It's not your favorite movie ever, but it's just that sentiment. And on the internet, you get these polar opposites fighting.
And it turns into people taking things out of context and being like, just twisting words and just to further an agenda or a narrative that they're trying to follow through.
Yeah.
People like to be angry too. That's the thing. And then, I mean, that's true for no matter whether you like something or dislike something. If you like something, then you've a reason to be angry at people for disliking it. I mean, the easiest thing to do is to react and to be like, what the fuck?
Sometimes something comes along where I'm like, I can't believe someone like this, like genuinely like this. And I don't mean like the For Todays or the Avatars of the world, but good bit. But there are movies or there are games or there are shows or whatever it is, and you're just like, this is just fucking awful. And so it does. Sometimes you have this like visceral reaction to someone who has a completely opposite opinion. Like, are you fucking dumb? And less so with like quote unquote normal people, right? But like people who do this for a living, right? And I'm like, are you? Like, better than to be like, this is a good thing, or this is like, better. So I just think that the conversation there can be detrimental. And when we're talking, as far as what companies are doing and consumers, I think we deserve better. I don't think you should settle for a mediocre game because it's Pokemon. You know what I mean? I think it should be.
Yeah, if this game came out and it wasn't called Pokemon, Sword and Shield, if
this was Yokai Watch, it'd be the worst fucking Yokai Watch in the franchise, right?
Yeah, it'd be a 6. I mean, it's clear that that's the case, but
right,
because of its target audience and the fact that it's built up as a franchise, it gives it a different perspective. Which, I mean, you could say the same thing about Star Wars.
Yeah,
you could say the same thing about literally anything that is based on something that came before.
Right, and again, unfortunately, maybe I've gotten to a point where these franchises aren't for me. That'd be a huge bummer because I know they're capable of making great things. Like, even with my issues with Zelda, right? Of which I think there were many. But they did enough right that was a genuinely, like, solid experience. You wrap it in the Zelda shell and whatever. Which is funny because I'm sitting here arguing against Pokemon with, like, basically the same argument I use against Zelda. But, like, I think there are vast degrees from what I've seen of Pokemon and what Zelda was. So it's the Nintendo effect. It's the Pokemon. It's the name, whatever. My whole point, I guess, is just I am a little bit bitter because I want better. And we're not going to get better if people don't make it known that they want better and they deserve better.
Yeah, it would just be nice because you see them team up with like these other like companies to make mobile games and shit. Like, why can't they give the Pokemon license to another developer to make a real Pokemon game, as opposed to like just the spin-offs. Like you really liked, what was it, Pokemon Conquest?
Dude.
That like
Loved
Nobunaga's
it.
Ambition sort of
Super sick.
crossover. Like, why can't they do more games like that, but like give it to Monolith Soft and
To
let
protect the franchise.
let the Xenoblade guys make a real Pokemon game, or like
That'd be so cool.
Square Enix do like what Dragon Quest XI did for the series, but do it for Pokemon. Like they could do that, and Pokemon makes enough money that anyone would love to work with that IP.
Yeah. Like, and I know this is dumb to say because Pokemon is like the highest grossing franchise in the history of entertainment. But Pokemon could go to the next level. They just say, take fucking 5 companies and give them the IP and just say, make insane fucking games.
And so just it's been around long enough, and I'm like, we're in our late 20s, we're still talking about Pokemon. We have fond memories. Like Pokemon helped us learn how to fucking read,
Hell yeah.
So they have an audience that is not just kids anymore. They could make games and various different things that's more tailored for us.
Yeah.
And I guess there's like a little bit of bitterness because of that. Like, why don't they make a game that's good for me instead of this game that's clearly made for kids and it's just got a big Pikachu, and it's like, that's the thing, is that there's a big Pikachu and a long Meowth.
This is the other side effect of their sustained and inflated success, right? Is they can sell 60 fucking million copies of the Pokemon games combined. Is also why they sell 2 versions of the same game. It's a fucking cheap trick. But they can sell 60 million fucking copies or whatever heinous number it is, right? And
Can you imagine if any other game franchise did that? You got NBA 2K20 Sword and NBA 2K20
yeah,
Shield.
no shit. Like, it's ridiculous.
If you want James Harden, you got to buy Sword.
Yeah, it's insane. That's still like acceptable, but like,
No, they just have casinos in their game.
right. Yeah, get your mommy's credit card and buy your VC, your virtual currency.
I mean, they did used to have the game corner in Red and Blue. You could gamble with your
Goddamn
fucking
microtransactions.
Seriously.
No, but because of their inflated and continued success, selling, 1 million copies of Pokemon Conquest, which for any other game is probably a huge success,
Yeah, that is a huge success.
right? But for them, they're like, that is a complete and utter failure. Why would we pimp out Pokemon?
It's because their mainline games were selling 5 millions of each copy, so you get 10 million of fucking Diamond and Pearl.
How much? We're gonna look up some quick maths for you here.
Probably more than that. I mean, the DS had 150 million consoles sold, so those are probably the highest selling Pokemon games were on the DS.
Sun and Moon sold over fucking 16 million copies.
And that was on the 3DS.
So obviously I'm exaggerating with 60 million copies, but still, that's a lot of fucking games.
And actually, the best selling Pokemon games were Red and Blue because they counted Red, Blue, and Yellow. I think that was 40 million combined.
That's insane. Doesn't get any more bigly than that. They, again, Pokemon Conquest. We never got a fucking sequel to Pokemon Conquest because it didn't sell well.
I'm surprised they did as many mystery dungeons as they did. That was like their premier spin-off franchise. I actually had like 3 of them.
I'm curious what the actual Pokemon Conquest sales numbers are. I'm looking this up now. Pokemon Conquest sales. Jesus fucking Christ. Is this right? 4 million copies?
Yeah, that sounds right. It's got the word Pokemon on it.
Like, that's insane. That's so many.
And that was what? Is that Koei Tecmo?
Oh, God. See, you make me go back to the Google.
I mean, they still do like spin-offs. Like there's Pokken, and that's Bandai Namco. But
Nobunaga. I can't say it. Nobunaga. Nobunaga.
Nobunaga.
Anyway, so 4 million copies. That's a huge fucking success.
Well, it's only a $40 game because it was on the DS.
Why isn't there a sequel? What other game in the fucking world sells 4 million copies and doesn't get a sequel?
I don't know, man. I'm not fucking head of Pokemon Company and Game Freak making these decisions.
I don't know, man.
Maybe it was too expensive to license the Pokemon brand from Pokemon. Like they just think it's so valuable, but it's got that high overhead. And I bet the developers didn't get a lick of those dollars either. They
Probably not.
probably a flat rate. Like they sold 4 million copies, but we only got this much money. We're not gonna make that. Not gonna make them a game again.
Well, that might be. But then what you would have seen is, if Nintendo had deemed that a success, they would have found another company to do it, to make the next Pokemon strategy game, which we haven't gotten.
Well, there's probably in the contract that because it's a crossover between Pokemon and Nobunaga's Ambition that they're legally obligated to be the only ones that are, first right of refusal, that kind of stuff. It's all,
Well, look at again, I keep bringing up Let's Go. That was that was the B team. They handed that off.
That was mobile. Or no, I'm talking about Let's Go.
Yeah, not Pokemon Go. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Well,
Sorry.
Pokemon Go, same thing. They were
Yeah, I thought you were talking about that because it's a third party working with the brand.
But I mean that's a wild success. But Pokemon Let's Go, this is just more me shitting on fucking Game Freak, is that they had what's his face direct it.
Was that Masuda?
Yeah, it was like one was supposed to be his last game.
Right, because he's getting kind of old.
Right. But they gave him the B team, the Young Bucks, and they fucking ran away with it because they're young kids who came up developing modern games. Unlike these old guys. I mean, not to say that everyone working on the Pokemon games is a fucking old guy, but
Not that Let's Go was like the pinnacle of game design.
no, but it was just there's a clear difference in quality. And what is Sword and Shield giving us that like Let's Go didn't? Obviously they had like as far as design goes from like they had a template where Sword and Shield was all from scratch, but everything around it. Anyway, I don't want to talk about Pokemon until I'll play it next year. I'll get it on sale. Wait, Nintendo games on sale? Not gonna happen.
Yeah, not likely. That's always the bummer. It's like I want to wait to like buy a thing, but it doesn't benefit me to wait.
Yeah.
Which I mean that benefits Nintendo because they've taught their consumers that it's not getting any cheaper. Might as well get it now.
Dude, that's fucking horrible. That's terrible. Well, here's the thing.
Keep their value.
That's not a game that you need to be a part of the zeitgeist for. I don't care.
I played a Pokemon.
Yeah.
I know what the game is.
Yeah. I don't care what anyone's saying about it. Because it's either people crying and whining about it, or it's people being super saccharine, like way over the top. This just takes me back to my childhood. This is life changing. Shut up.
It was life changing 2 years ago when you played Sun and Moon, right?
It's a bad Pokemon game.
Life changing. You played X and Y 6 years ago,
Right. Like it's just I don't need either of those discourses in my life. So I'm just like whatever. So, but if you were to buy it, I would consider. If my brother bought it, I would consider because
it is one of those. It's one of those social things. Like my buddy Mac, he was texting me saying that he got it and he's been enjoying it. He's liking it. But it's one of those things where you don't want to be the one playing the game a year after everyone else played it either.
Right. And I'm sure if we played it, it'd be fine. We'd put 10 hours into it. It'd be Pokemon. But there's so many things, and I have such.
I mean, we made it through X and Y, and that was pretty rough.
Overall, I liked X and Y.
X and Y was fine. I liked some of the Pokemon, but like, tell me one thing about the story.
That was the guy Lysandre or whatever with the crazy hair, and they were like trying to like.
I mean, was it Lysander?
Sure, Lysander.
You said Lysandre, and I'm picturing the way it's spelled because of the way you said that, which is funny. All I remember is the giant man holding out the hands. It's been 10,000 years. Why was he so big?
I feel like Lysandre is less dumb than Lysander, but you're probably right.
Lysander is a Shakespeare thing.
Whatever.
I think, pretty sure.
Pokemon. Anyway, the guy, and they were something about space, and they were trying to build a thing to either like send Pokemon to space or just send a comet to, I don't know.
I thought that was Sun and Moon.
Sun and Moon had space and like other dimensions. But they were doing something with space.
Ultra beasts that aren't Pokemon, but they totally are.
It's just
also on the topic of Sword and Shield, really quick. I think it's pretty funny that Arceus isn't in the game. Like they couldn't even put God in the game. God's not allowed in Great Britain.
It's an intentional move. So yeah, that's Pokemon again. It's
justice for Squirtle.
Oh my god, dude! It's so dumb. See, I'm just getting mad about it. It's like a little thing. It's a dumb thing. Let's move on to Star Wars. We talked earlier about how there's the review embargo thing, and whenever this happens, we have flashbacks to Ubisoft with the Assassin's Creed game, and it was literally
Unity.
Yeah, and it was a total disaster. And they were like, "You're not allowed to release any reviews after the game comes out." It was this whole thing. And we talked about how, is that shady? Well, no, because it's up to the consumer to be like smart with their fucking money and whatever.
Yeah, and let the reviewers say, hey, we're not allowed to talk about this until this is the embargo they wanted to put to us, and like they can either agree to it. Like you have to sign an NDA in order to agree to it. But if you don't sign it and you don't accept to their terms, you don't have to review it right away either. So like
Right.
Obviously that can like hurt your bottom line if you're in the business of like reviewing games, but like your ethics
Right.
And the way you interact with corporations should also be pretty transparent. I think that behooves you.
Ethics in video game journalism?
I know, unheard of. Who would think?
God. I remember my buddy texted me and he told me about the news. And dude, I was crestfallen. I texted him, I said, the game's gonna suck. Lock it in. You don't come back. It's just this is EA. I'm obviously Respawn's developing this is EA. This is a bad business tactic. When you see this, it does not bode well. The game's trash.
Not to mention earlier in the week, they broke the news that their EA Access program, which people can subscribe to play games like 10 hours early or whatever,
right,
was not going to apply to this game either.
Right.
So it just seemed like, well,
because spoilers.
Sure.
Right. I'm like, oh, because spoiling it a week ahead
because
you've
never put out a story game, like you didn't. This wasn't the case for Battlefront 2. Was that why the game was like reviewed poorly? And it wasn't the microtransactions. It was actually because people played the game 10 hours early
Spoilers
for the 4-hour campaign.
It's ridiculous. So I thought that was it. That was the end of Star Wars. I was like, I can't wait for a bunch of 6.5s to come out, and it's just, I'm not gonna play that.
On the 5 to 10 scale that reviewers use.
Right. Like if I have The Witcher 3 and I've got Mad Max, am I going to play the fucking 10 or am I going to play the 6.5? You're playing the 10. I don't have time in my life to play 6.5s, Nick. So I was fully expecting this game to just be like, this game sucks, it's clunky, it's buggy, but it's Star Wars. Like, okay. No, I can't handle any more of that. Well, luckily, the game came out. It has been very positively reviewed. Last time I looked, it was sitting at an 85 on Metacritic, which is like really good. Metacritic scores usually skew lower. Like good games are usually in the 75 to 80 range, right? Mm. So you push 80, that's
I don't even
really
use
good.
Metacritic really anymore. I use something called OpenCritic.
Oh, okay.
Because Metacritic weights their scores and they don't tell you how they're weighted, which is super shady.
Yeah.
Like how much is IGN worth compared to Games Radar, compared to GameSpot, compared to,
Wow. And then the user reviews you can't fucking trust because it's just people who are giving it a 0 because like I hate this game, or they're giving it a 10 because they like the game and there's no
or because
nuance.
They don't want it to be a 0. Like
right.
User reviews are pretty worthless unless you want to read some funny shit posting.
Which is again, you have to take a review score with a grain of salt, especially even in an aggregate score. I mean,
you should definitely read the review because the word content is more important than the number. The number only it conveys to you a level of quality, but not like the reasons why.
Right. And generally speaking, if a game gets a 6, it's probably not great. Right. There are basic, I guess, universal metrics by which we judge these things, and each of those metrics has a little bit of play, a bit of subjectivity, but overall.
That's the point of like an aggregator, though, is that it's a wide variety of opinions. So it just depends on, you really ought to find a reviewer whose tastes you align with, and then their reviews can be a little bit more like analogous to maybe what you might experience.
Right.
Because like on the topic of Death Stranding, IGN, they had a reviewer from Australia give it a 6.8. But then, like, they have a French reviewer because, IGN, a global brand, who gives it a higher score, or the Japanese score was higher, or GameSpot loved it, or Giant Bomb hated it. It just depends on who you're listening to and what you think their reasoning behind it. Like, oh, that makes sense, or, oh, they're being hypercritical of this thing that I wouldn't really care about.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to... You can't just read it. I mean, we're in the age and the era of YouTube and Twitch, so you can watch someone play it, and that gives you a much closer idea of like what the actual moment to moment is and whether or not that's something you're into. Sure. So reviews are almost like, I understand they still drive traffic, but I think it's mostly because there's a number attached to it. You can see that with like, I guarantee you, since Polygon stopped adding numbers to their scores, no one's reading their reviews. Not nearly as many people who would just go to IGN, get that click, scroll to the bottom, look at the number, screenshot, use that as a weapon or justification or whatever, and then move on. I mean, it's the same reason why people make top 10 lists, is so people can argue in the comments, because no top 10 list is right. It's just fuel for people to get mad or to be like vilified or justified or whatever.
Right. The dog is doing it up there.
Just having a scamper.
Oh my goodness. I totally had a thought and I lost it. I got distracted by the dog.
Thunderfoot's up there.
On the topic of Death Stranding, it's interesting how hype plays into things. How hype can skew a mediocre game into being poor. how hype can skew a mediocre game to being good, or how it just gets people playing it and talking about it, like Death Stranding.
Or even a great game and being like, this isn't what I expected.
Sure. Yeah. And that's why, like, when we talk about something like The Last of Us 2, like, that is not going to be better than the original game because of the hype, the expectation, and
Because it won't be
dialogue around it.
Surprising thing. It'll be more of the same. It'll have surprising moments, but it's going to be a sequel.
And people are going to be hypercritical. They're going to analyze every frame of that game.
And this ain't the NES era. You know, Mario 2, very different from Mario 1.
Right.
They're not going to do that.
Right.
They're going to play it safe because the first game sold many millions of copies. The remake, quote unquote remake,
Right.
the remaster or whatever on the PS4 sold many millions of copies as well. So they're going to play it, quote unquote, safe by just continuing the story because it's a sequel. But like, look at Uncharted 2, 3, and 4. It's just iterating.
God, Uncharted is just not a series. I can't believe that series has any success.
It's really surprising how much success that series has.
I mean, in 2007, I get it. Gorgeous graphics, fun story, was doing things no game had really ever done, is swashbuckling adventure.
Games have good graphics now because they have hundreds of people making them for 5 years.
Right.
And it's still making them money somehow.
As far as the Death Stranding thing, I find it interesting because, again, it's one of those games where nobody really liked it. People found it interesting. And all these guys who got the game for free were like, this does interesting things. It's like a weird mini game that you can enjoy for like 2 hours, but then there's this whole game around it. So they have all these criticisms, but because it was kind of fun for a second, they're like, yeah. And because Kojima's weird. Yeah, great game. And I'm like, all the reviews I've read, none of them has ever been, no one was like, this is a great game. This is amazing. This is revolutionary. This is so different and interesting.
Well, yeah, that'd be hyperbolic. They would be criticized for their review if they said that.
But people are still giving it, again, these great review scores, and people are like, oh, Death Stranding turned out to be a great game. It's like, it's just,
because like
so
I
much
said
hype.
earlier, a great game can have problems and still be a great game. It's more than some of its parts.
I don't even think it's a great, from what, again, this is anecdotal, friends who've played it, reading reviews, watching streams. It's not Skyrim. This is not like, oh, Skyrim was
more was Morrowind but bigger, Oblivion but bigger.
Sure, but because where it came in the life cycle of the console, how accessible it was, like Skyrim's like
it wasn't very accessible if you had a CRT TV. You couldn't read any of the text on the screen.
Yeah, or if you had a PS3.
That's true because you opened too many doors and it would crash.
Oh my god. Well, that was a year after the game even came out before they finally got it, and then it was a buggy mess. But Skyrim was like, yeah, Skyrim was a wreck in so many ways, but it was, so yeah, I'm with you.
I don't know. Whenever I see someone give a game a 10, that immediately puts out like warning signs to me. Not to like the game isn't a 10, like I'm sure they can justify it, but you really have to, I don't know, it's weird. The whole idea of judging someone else's opinion is kind of a slippery slope for me.
Sure.
And it's kind of tough for me to be like, I can't tell someone what they think about a game, especially a game. Like the way you play the game can change the way you like it. Like I'm sure you watched that video of the guy who's playing Cuphead and can't even get past the first jump in a tutorial. And it's like, this guy is not going to give Cuphead a 10, but someone who really likes running gun video games and loves Contra and stuff can easily give Cuphead a 10, you know?
Sure.
So it's what you bring to it too. And like what you're looking for and like what you're feeling right now. Like I'm not really feeling like a cozy Pokemon or like an RPG right now. I've been playing some Bloodstained, which is like an action game. It's Metroidvania. I've been playing some Mario Maker because I fucking love Mario.
Right.
But like, give it a month and I'm gonna be burrowed in and I'm gonna want to play an RPG because that's what I do in the winter when my winter break happens. Like I want to play an RPG. I just want to like zone out.
Right.
And that's that time and place for it. So maybe it's just the right time, right place for a lot of reviewers, but like they can look at it and say, you know, objectively, you know, quote unquote, objectively, this might not be everything for everyone, but like for me right now, this is like, it hits. So I can understand that, especially like I'm in the group chat and like two of the guys are playing Death Stranding right now and they're having a great time.
We are running out of space quick here, but I keep getting warnings. So I'm trying to delete things here before, like we were running out of space.
We both have played Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order for what, maybe like 2 hours grand total. We got through the little intro scene, got to the first like planet.
Right.
I've got my hands on it, but I just did some combat, was trying to solve some puzzles, did some wall runs. Feels all right.
We were worried about the reviews, the embargo. It was just, you know.
I wasn't too worried. I just thought it was kind of weird how quiet they were about it. But they did the same thing with Titanfall 2 like 3 years ago, and that was really weird. And you love Titanfall 2.
Well, see, the thing with Titanfall 2, and again, they shot themselves in the foot because it
was also weird because it was before EA owned Respawn, and like there was like some weird kind of shenanigans with first right to refusal about Nexon trying to buy them, and like that was a big thing for like a minute there, and then EA decided to put a ring on it.
Dude, I was gonna say, do you think that was like...
Then Vincent Pella, who's like the head of Respawn, was flexing, and now he's like a board member at EA, and so like
That's
clearly
weird.
Well, I mean, Respawn, they started because of the breakup with Activision through Infinity Ward, and there's a big lawsuit about that. So just like reading about all this stuff, it seems like Vince is like big swinging dick, and he's like, I can do what I want, and if you don't like it, then I'm out.
Yeah.
So I think he's got a lot more power than maybe some of the other developers that's under EA's wing.
I wonder if it was like something weird about like did they intentionally tank Titanfall 2?
They might have. I mean,
so that they could scoop up Respawn.
They tried to scissor Call of Duty that year with Titanfall on one end and Battlefield on the other.
That's what I'm saying.
And they both suffered for it.
Right. But they couldn't, like, you have all these smart people, this whole marketing team, all these numbers guys. No one in the right mind could say this was the move. You almost think that maybe there's something fishy there because they're like, well, the game sells like crap, and then they're taking the financial hit.
It's also like
can swoop them up.
The time gets really squeezed around the end of October, early November kind of area, because you want to have the game out in distribution in line before Black Friday, because you get so many sales around that time that maybe it was just like, we got to get this game out before the quarter ends because we need that financial boost because of our investors. Like,
but then it didn't sell. That game, they would have been better off.
It sold, but it probably wouldn't have sold more in like January or February.
I'm saying you make that a Valentine's Day game. That thing would have done way better.
Maybe, but I mean, we don't know.
Unfortunately, because it was a freaking great game. Respawn makes great games. So that's my conspiracy jiggle for the day.
Yeah, I mean,
I think EA tanked it on purpose.
There is a reality in which that happened, and that might be our reality, but I don't know. I think it's
Stain.
I think
universe.
It's valid.
Yeah. So anyway, Star Wars comes out. It reviews very well. People are happy about it. It's a buggy experience. That's the one thing people have really been harping on.
We had a hard crash.
Yeah.
I saw quite a bit of frame rate troubles.
Not as bad as I expected based on all the reviews and what people are talking about it. To me, it ran better than God of War.
Oh no, it was chugging way more than God of War.
I don't know. God of War was
for me
a mess when I first played.
And
I
played both of them on base PS4. So
okay, fair enough. Maybe it was because I was playing unlocked, so the dips were more noticeable. So you would go from 50 to 28.
Yeah.
So maybe it was just more exaggerated
as opposed to 30 to 25, which might have been for God of War.
Sure. Less noticeable. I thought it ran fine. The hard crash was a bummer. You just completely had to reboot. But and here's the thing: people say, "Oh, this game they should have waited till it had more polish. You should have delayed it, or whatever." It'll
get patched.
Here's the thing: there are little things, but there's only so much you can do. Like when we crashed there, in all the instances of playtesting, that probably never happened, and that we reported that, and that's gonna make it back to the dev team, right? And be like, "Uh-oh." When this line of code does this thing happens and the game crashes. Like
It's not the first time that game has crashed for anyone. Like
no, of course not.
You have to imagine, like, yes, there are incidents that get past QA, but like there's a term for that called known shippable, where it's like, we know that this is a problem, we have to get it out anyway, and we'll just fix it afterwards.
But even considering the scope of these things and how many people are working on it and how much goes into it.
I'm not saying it's like unforgivable. It's definitely forgivable, but
sure.
It's something that needs to be like,
this
game's probably going to crash on you.
Yeah.
You're going to have frame rate hitches. In like 2 weeks, there's probably going to be a patch that's like, hey, we fixed this, this, and this. We know about this. We're working to fix that.
Sure.
We're going to add a photo mode, all that kind of shit.
Whatever.
But New Game Plus will be added eventually.
This is why all these big games, unless they're The Witcher, which took... Let's see, Witcher 2 is 2012.
And people were pissed when The Witcher 3 came out.
I'm sorry, Witcher 2 is 2008?
A long time ago.
Not 2012. I don't know.
It was definitely 360 though.
Yeah, ages
2010 maybe.
Anyway, so Witcher 3 takes 6-7 years to develop. Okay, of like active development. Like okay, you have a little more time to play test, to polish things, and you have whatever
Polish things.
Right. But like you see games like Skyrim or any of the Bethesda games, and they're so buggy because they're massive. And guess what? Sometimes you can't fix things until tens of thousands of people have found these things that
Forever. Sometimes you just don't fix them.
That's where the issue is. So when you find that the glitches are found, you gotta patch them. And
well, at least
some
thankfully this game isn't on Frostbite or on Bethesda's engine. This is on Unreal, so they probably get some more support from Epic on that.
Right, a known quantity that's presumably it's more ubiquitous than
definitely more ubiquitous than fucking Frostbite, which they can't make any game on except unless it's a shooter.
Right. So a little thing like that, it's not like it's running at 12 frames per second and crashing every 10 minutes.
No. It's not nearly that bad, but it is
totally
buggy.
Playable.
Yeah.
But
buggy but playable.
Yeah. I even hesitate to say it was buggy. It had one issue and like 2 frame rate drops. Like it wasn't even like that bad. Again, my experience with God of War was way worse.
I mean, you were on your phone, but there were parts where I was like,
oh, okay.
It was
in the
chugging.
grassy area, it got worse.
Yeah, it was really bad. And like going from one area to another is definitely like loading in assets really slowly. And like,
gotcha.
I mean, it's noticeable. And like, I'm not the most, I don't notice.
Attuned to that?
Yeah, I don't play a lot of games that try for 60, but then don't hit it.
That's right. My eyes see 125 per second, so it's okay.
Yeah, I'm not a fighter pilot like you.
Okay, Star Fox.
I got these dumb eyes.
Let's talk about the actual game. Let's talk about the game. Okay, it's a little buggy. No big deal. Graphically, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a good looking game. I think I would rather play on my PC than on the base PS4 that I have.
Yeah.
Because it looks a little fuzzy and that's fine, but like I have the option to play this on a more powerful piece of hardware.
Sure.
So I would much rather do it there.
Fuzzy is the right word. It definitely has that like janky aliased.
It's got some fuzz and like I think I just have a problem with modern cameras because I had this problem with God of War and trying to get used to that, but it's like so unresponsive and like kind of slow and like this it's hard to describe, but it's like the ramp up into the camera movement speed that like I end up overshooting a lot of times. Or like it's just too sensitive, but it's not sensitive enough at the same time.
Camera acceleration.
Yeah, it literally is the camera acceleration. It's kind of wonky, and I'd like to be able to fine tune that, and that might be an option on the PC. I'm not going to play on mouse and keyboard because I can't play action games on mouse and keyboard to save my life.
You want to talk about unintuitive?
Yeah, that's
garbage.
Not for me.
I think graphically, like, it doesn't look bad. Some of the facial stuff is weird.
I think the aliens look really good.
Well, yeah, it just doesn't have a lot of character or style. It's kind of gray, it's kind of brown. It's just very like, okay,
we've only been to 2 locations. I would imagine that there's
but just the
lava
style,
planet
the
and the snow planet. There's got to be like different like
I'm sure, but I don't mean locales and set design. I just mean the aesthetic. It's very
the palette,
it's very
the look of
generic.
Tables.
It's very generic. It's just like, okay, that's a game. Like something like The Witcher had its own character, and it had a very, I don't want to say very distinct as if it were like some crazy cell shaded thing, but it was like it had its own look and it was very polished.
I don't think
and pretty.
When I look at like videos of The Witcher, I don't think, oh man, wow.
Witcher
until like Blood and Wine, where it actually like looked like a different area. That was cool.
Sure. The Witcher.
But then you go to like Skelligos and you're just like, oh, this is a fucking rock in the sea, whatever.
Sure, but there's so many
I'm
locations
in the woods
in
and
that game.
I got to follow the footprints of this witch.
Best still to this day, I think, is probably still the best looking game I've played. When it was maxed out.
Right.
Again, I'm sure the Xbox or PS4 base experience was very different than what I had with the most powerful card at the time that you could possibly buy.
Yeah, I've only played it on my PC which has a 970.
Yeah, gorgeous game. But the art style, the art direction, it's kind of, the Star Wars is a little bit bland, and we'll see as things pick up. But it's like, that's not a deal breaker for me by any means. Combat. Well, first, okay, let's get to the combat. Let's start here. We started this game together, and you have an opening cutscene, and this is going to be spoiler free, but there's a whole opening cutscene. You immediately get to know these 2 characters who are both interesting and I think well acted right off the bat, even though I hate what's his face's dumb monkey face. And I was quickly like, okay, this is Star Wars. Like, we talked about what a great job like showing scale they're doing. You're in this big junkyard, you're seeing all these ships, and you feel very small. And it runs you through this tutorial where you're running around the junkyard doing all this platforming, and it's quickly trying to teach you all the platforming and all the tips and tricks and
Yeah, very Uncharted with like the guided
yes.
sort of tutorial and, like you said, platforming section. But as that's going on, you've got the camera that's actively moving around you and showing off, hey, check out that big ship over there. Look at these look at these droids doing their thing, and look at, you're actually in a quote unquote living, breathing environment,
And if you've played
stuff's going on while you're moving through it.
right, if you've played Uncharted, if you've played Horizon, you're gonna be very familiar. Like Horizon, especially, is
God of
probably
War
the
had
most,
moments of that too from last year.
yeah, and that was platformy, but not quite to this level or to this degree.
Similar level though, with like, hey, check out this painted white handhold thing.
Right, here's an arrow. Jump up this ledge.
Good visual language. Like,
Yeah.
you have a pretty good idea of like what you can interact with in this game, except for the very beginning when you're jumping at that wall, thinking that you could climb up it. I'm like, no, just go over there where the light is shining on the slide that you're
I
going
didn't
down.
see that. I was just like, yeah, whatever. Horizon's probably the most comparable game as far as how this game feels to me so far that I've played in recent years. As far as, I mean, if you've played a modern third-person action adventure RPG, you know how this game feels. So kind of skipping through without spoiling things, you get dumped into the story very, very quick. You have just enough to kind of get to know these characters, you like them, and then action happens. You have this huge action set piece where it's very Uncharted. It's very much the beginning of Uncharted 2. And again, if you've played Uncharted 2, you get an idea of what's happening in this junkyard. It's big, it's kind of freaky. You're doing a lot of platforming, and it's thrilling. You're like, whoa, that just happened. And you're like,
the combat tutorial kicks in, and
yep.
you were very happy the first time you just like chopped a dude down with a lightsaber.
Dude, it was sick. Watching the gameplay, you're like, what's up? Why is this guy not just cutting down stormtroopers? He's a goddamn Jedi with a lightsaber, and these are clunk heads and armor. Not a problem. You just one hit these guys, poof, poof, chop them to bits. It's the later guys who have the stun batons and things that can combat a lightsaber, whatever. So that was nice. You felt powerful right off the bat. And you just met this guy. Spoiler alert, he's a Jedi. So that was cool. So yeah, you go through the whole combat thing. And again, it's like, I thought the pacing of the tutorial was really good. It wasn't hand-holding whatsoever. It hit all the beats. It felt natural. It was quick. And you just got through it all. And then we're on to the story. So I think it was a really good first hour. The second planet we went to, you took over. So I was kind of on and off my phone. But like, it felt a lot more boring to me. I had the same look everywhere, had the same two enemies. And I know it's supposed to just be a little like intermediary sort of place before you go off to presumably the next planet or wherever you're going.
Yeah, I think it was more just setting the tone of like, okay, we have that intro sort of bombastic cinematic tutorial section. And now this is more of like the bread and butter of like what you're going to be doing as far as exploring the area and unlocking backtracking shortcuts, and like this is the game that you're actually playing.
Sure.
And the first part was just like a little experience. And
Well,
you're probably going to have those sprinkled in. It'd be like saying, okay, because Spider-Man opened with a QTE, then that's what the game is. Like,
sure.
no, that's just like for the big bombastic moments.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Hopefully the locations get more diverse and the enemies get more diverse.
Oh, they're going to be.
I
Like,
know.
this is just some like podunk, swampy area with like bog rats.
Yeah. Ogdo Bogadin.
Oingo boingo.
Oingo Boingo. Humperdinck.
Yeah, getting my ass beat by the same boss everyone else talks about getting their ass beat by.
So the combat, for me, I love just the Assassin's Creed Batman Arkham combat. Give me an attack button, maybe give me a couple of items, give me a parry button. I'm okay with that usually.
That's kind of what this feels like to me.
Really?
Yeah.
A
A little bit too mashy.
Okay. I wonder, I'm curious because to me it felt like, and my frustrations with it are very similar to that of my time playing like the Dark Souls game. You have attack, you have parry, you have dodge. And I'm like, really, that's really simple. And in
Everything
fact,
felt just a little bit looser to me than
Sure.
Dark Souls.
and that's probably by design.
Sure. I mean, yeah, this game is not what those games are.
But
I mean,
it's-
they took a lot of cues from that. You've got these meditation rings that you heal at, and it
Little
resets all the
bonfires.
enemies, and it resets your health packs, and then you upgrade your health packs so you get more of them, or they heal you for more as you go along through the game. So
Yeah.
I would imagine that they took a lot of cues in that respect, and like combat wise, it just doesn't feel anything like Dark Souls to me.
People
Feels
are
a
saying
lot
it feels more
closer
like Sekiro.
No, I don't
You
know.
play
I haven't
Sekiro?
played Sekiro, but like
That's what people are saying. But
to
I
me, it
wouldn't know.
felt a lot more like Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Hmm.
Maybe a little bit better because a lot of that combat felt like I was attacking people with like a pool noodle, and there's like a little bit of that here where I just don't feel like as much impact with my attacks.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I'm two-shotting a lot of these like little critters that are hanging out, but
So you're getting really granular with it in compare to me.
wow, imagine me getting granular. with
No, I
something.
think that's good though. It's perspective for other like Souls players who are like looking at this sort of game.
Yeah, I think it's just the easy comparison to draw just because of other things that they're doing in the game. But combat-wise, I don't get a Dark Souls vibe at all.
See, it's funny because you said the same thing about like Monster Hunter.
It's like you don't have a stamina bar even. Like you can just swing your sword as much as you want, and like your enemies have attacks that aren't going to get interrupted by that for some reason. But like you can just keep attacking, you can keep dodging. There's infinite dodge, infinite attack. The only thing that you have a bar for is your
Force
defense
powers.
and your forts.
Yeah.
So you have like force powers where you can like freeze your enemy, or like I think your heavy attack uses force power as well.
See, to me, it feels I'm sure you'll fight me on this, but like we had this discourse over Monster Hunter, and a lot of people out there are like, "Oh, Monster Hunter is like Dark Souls with dinosaurs." And yeah,
Somebody
if
came
you-
first, so Dark Souls is more like Monster Hunter with zombies
Sure.
or whatever.
And if you really break it down, like you're sitting here breaking it down, like, well, Star Wars doesn't have a stamina bar, and you can only blah blah blah. But it's like, if I'm looking at Souls or Assassin's Creed Arkham, this combat in Star Wars is a lot more like Dark Souls, where it's your timing is really important. It's not just go hack and slash until you kill the things. It's you have to get your timing right, you have to get your parries right, you have to know when to dodge because there are attacks.
so you're
you
saying
can't block.
it's just well designed as opposed to Assassin's Creed combat.
I mean, I would argue for a lot of games and for a lot of people, the simpler combat is better. Daniel could never play the Star Wars game. Like he would not have the patience to figure out, like, you don't just go spam this button and kill a thing. You have to like think about it. You have to stop. Every enemy has a different attack pattern. Every enemy has different timing on how you parry them. You have to stop. You have to think. Even on a lower difficulty, you can't.
Yeah,
just
and I wouldn't
bum
say
rush.
that that's complex. That's just requires more patience
Sure, definitely more way
and
into
to
design
pay
that.
attention. And I think it's just more rewarding in general to be like, I have to do the thing, and I'm not just cruising through. It's not like a roller coaster that you're just sort of experiencing and
Sure.
I'm going to attack this guy, but I'm not actually attacking. I'm just pressing the button and then the game does the rest.
Right.
This is more like your actions do follow through and you're just doing the thing, which I guess you could say is Souls-like, or I could just say it's just like not brain dead combat. Like this is probably closer to God of War combat, just because you have like powers and you're upgrading them. But you never have that in something like Dark Souls. It's very like your weapon has 2 attacks and that's what you do.
See, God of War again. Just to me felt so just hack and slash to me. And again, maybe it was the easier difficulty I'm playing on.
And
the
encounters
hack and
the encounters in God of War are like you're fighting a lot more weenie enemies as opposed to like this, where the enemies are still pretty weenie in this first area, but you can see like you definitely see the DNA and like you see where it's going to go, that it's going to be a lot more one-on-one attacks, one-on-one battles, which are always more fun to me. Like I don't like to be surrounded by things that don't matter. I'd rather be like, oh, this one guy can mess me up and I have to really worry about this one guy right now, and that keeps me engaged and focused.
That makes sense. I get frustrated quicker than anything. So there's a balance to me between like, okay, this is
That's
Dynasty
understandable
Warriors,
too. Yeah.
you know, and I'm just hack and slashing everything and you get bored really, really quickly. Versus like I like the God of War combat now in retrospect with like a little more perspective. But and it was the difficulty level probably influenced like how bored I got of it.
And that's another thing,
But-
really quick, while you're on that line of thought. I think the thing I would get frustrated the most by this game is the fact that the load times are so bad right now. I really hope that gets fixed because
I'm sure it will be.
it was
yeah.
really, really bad. I want to fight that frog thing a bunch, but I don't want to wait a full minute in between death
And then
like,
have to run back all the way up. and
running
around the
back
thing.
is fine. Running back, I'm doing a thing, but like sitting there looking at a black screen, I'm not doing anything. I'm just
Yeah.
losing patience.
If you hop on Twitter in between instances,
Then I'm not playing the game. I'm
that's
on
bad.
Twitter.
That's bad. I agree with you there, and that'll all get fixed. But so far, the game,
Hopefully.
the
We
game
can't just
is-
say that it will because it might not, but like hopefully it does.
I have faith in a company like Reese. They've done well. They've done really well. So
They have, but I don't know what their load times are in other games, and like, is the design lends itself to that? Like, what's the? I can't speak with authority that they will. I hope they do though. I believe in them.
Overall, it feels like Star Wars. You feel like a Jedi playing as this kid, right? And that first set piece is any indication, like this is gonna be a really cool experience.
Definitely, yeah. It seems really bombastic and entertaining.
So
Star Wars, above all things, should be entertaining.
Right. So yeah, I'm all on board, and I'm gonna hopefully get some time to play it this week. We'll see. It might kind of get put on the back burner until Christmas break, but
I will say that I enjoyed the little bit of hands-on I got with it, but this is not like I have to go out and get this game right away.
Sure.
I feel fine waiting for this. I've got other games that I've been playing and I want to keep going and get back to.
you got to pick up Pokemon, so
Yeah,
you'll be
gotta
busy.
pick up Pokemon, and so I can cry on the internet about that. But then, got other games to play. This will probably be pretty cheap, pretty quick, and then probably play this maybe next year.
Next year, dang man.
Dude, it's almost December.
I know. I just need you to play a game at the same time as me so we can talk about it, have a shared experience. I can't get you to play MTG Arena.
You get Shield, I'll get Sword.
Oh my god! If you bought it, I would very reluctantly buy it.
I could
play it.
easily bully you into getting that game if I wanted to.
Yeah.
You love to spend your money. A fool and his money, you know.
Come on. I don't love spending my money. I like spending my money on cool things. I don't like buying dumb shit. I like buying shit I can use or shit I can like. I feel like Pokemon would be neither of those things.
I'm just giving you
Yeah.
shit.
Well, I hope this podcast sounds okay. I'm talking into a sock. My mouth keeps touching it inadvertently. But it's 11:42. I'm exhausted. I have to work all day tomorrow and then drive back to Eugene. So we're going to wrap it up. It's going to take a lot of editing.
I'm sorry.
We're an hour 20 in right now. I bet you this podcast ends up being like 61 minutes long.
Damn.
We're going to cut a lot out.
Yeah, probably. That dog. I'm sorry.
I'm not worried about it. We got some good stuff despite it. Crusade Podcast.